of Sue remember very clearly the day that their daughter, Hannah Elizabeth Graham, was born. It was February 25th, 1996, and they were in England at the Royal Berkshire Hospital. She was their second child after their son, James. The family of four moved to the Washington, D.C. region of the United States in 2001, where John became an environmental specialist at the World's Bank International Finance Corp. The family settled into a town in the Alexandria, Virginia area. Hannah really embraced life in the United States with enthusiasm. She was an optimistic kid. She was happy. She immersed herself in and took great delight from her school and many extracurricular activities. She was described as bright, personable, trusting, extremely loyal to her friends, and utterly without prejudice. She had great empathy, took many pleasures in helping other people, and she was delighted to contribute to Habitat for Humanity's post-tornado rebuilding in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I'm sorry if you hear rain sounds. It is thundering here. Maybe it'll add to the ambiance. Anyway, Hannah excelled in her schoolwork with a particular passion for the French language and France, where she was able to study during her last summer. She was a musical person. She played the piano and later took up the alto saxophone. She was proud to become a section leader at the West Potomac High School marching band. She was athletic, a softball player, and when she got to college, she enjoyed ski racing. Hannah hoped to pursue a career in global public health and intended to apply for a special program in this field at UVA. She had enormous potential, and the world will really miss the great things that she would have achieved and contributed. However, her family also remembers the small things about Hannah: her smile, her love of life, her quick wit, her cooking, and just texting and chatting with her on the telephone. They describe Hannah as a force of nature, never half-hearted, and that she really fully immersed herself in everything she took on in life. So, Hannah was a senior at West Potomac High School when she made the trip to Charlottesville to visit the University of Virginia. Hannah was a straight-A student. She had her choice of colleges, but after taking one look at the lawn at UVA, with its white columned porticos, brick pathways, and leafy gardens, she fell just instantly in love. Her father said they were aware that it was a very highly rated school, and he thought that his daughter would be tucked safely away at the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, far from the danger of big cities. He said, "Your kids grow up, they go away to school, that's what happens." It seemed as safe as could be. How wrong could I be? Hannah immediately fit in at UVA. She joined the tight-knit ski team, where she was known for her gregarious personality and ability to fly down the treacherous slopes with ease. During a ski trip to Wintergreen, she even took part in a costume race outfitted in a black beaded flapper dress with a Union Jack tied around her shoulders as a cape. She was smart. She took courses in biology and chemistry. She made the dean's list. And that fall, her sophomore year, she decided to pursue those studies in global health development. That last email that she sent John was a description of this program at the school. The night that Hahna went missing, she partied with 2 other ski team members, a girl named Jenna Van Dyke and Hallie Pence. They started at the Fig Bistro and Bar near the campus. Hahna even performed in a conga line that night with her friends. Her friend Jenna said she was happy as can be and smiling from ear to ear. The 3 friends were at the Fig, and then they decided to go to an apartment party. Around midnight, Hahna told her friends that she wasn't really feeling very well, and she was just gonna head home. This is where things get a little confusing, as with most cases. Hahna keeps in communication with her friends by text for the next hour or so, but each text becomes really harder to understand because she's pretty drunk and she's just kind of wandering around the town. The very last text message that came from her indicated that she was lost. It's not completely unreasonable for her to be lost. It was really only her 2nd year there, and who really knows if she'd been in this particular area before. Surveillance cameras were able to pick up much of Hahna's movements during this night. She's walking around very unsteadily. She appears to be quite intoxicated. The footage also shows her being approached by an unknown man at the time, a large man with dreadlocks. In fact, this man is seen on camera walking towards Hahna, passing her, making a U-turn, turning around to come up next to her and toss his arm around her. A witness later said that they saw Hahna with this man at the man's car, a burnt orange Chrysler coupe. The last CCTV footage of Hahna, she is at a place called the Downtown Mall, about 1.5 miles from her campus. What happened after that is unknown. The next morning, her friends Jenna and Hallie were among the first to call the police to report her missing. Hahna's father John said the first indication that he had that something was wrong with his daughter is when she did not respond to an email that he sent her. At this point, fear stepped in and started to take over. He thought, why hasn't she responded? And then, when they realized she was missing, he started to wonder, what happened? Has she run off with some boy or something? But of course she hadn't. That wasn't Hahna. Saturday goes by, Sunday goes by, and her family hopes that she'll turn up for class on Monday. But she doesn't. Then they start hoping, well, maybe she's just lost, or maybe she had an accident, maybe we'll just find her somewhere. More than 1,000 people turned out to search for Hahna. So many volunteers arrived at the John Paul Jones Arena that they needed to be arranged in groups, and they were actually assigned different start times. I have never heard of that before. This search covered 85% of the city, but Hahna was still not found. Her father said while he was in Charlottesville, joining in on the massive search for his daughter, he walked the route that she took that night. He was search his apartment. They seize his car. They obtain something from his wallet. Later, I found out that it was like a tip that you put on a cigar to smoke it. They take that into evidence. They send it off to be analyzed, assumingly for his DNA. They also found some other things that were not really revealed to the public. Just days after fleeing, Jesse Matthews is still on the run, and he is formally charged in Hannah's abduction. They felt like they had sufficient probable cause to seek an arrest warrant, charging him with a Class 3 felony of abduction with intent to defile. And this is the first time Hannah's mother, her name is Sue, really speaks out, and she says, "Someone listening to me today either knows where Hannah is or knows someone who has that information. We appeal to you to come forward and tell us where Hannah can be found." The public only knew that Hannah was missing. They didn't know where she was, if she was alive, if she wasn't alive. Everyone had their fears and suspicions, but no one knew the truth. So now the police are not just looking for one missing person. They're looking for two. Surely someone has some information about this guy. After all, he grew up in this town. He's 32. He went to high school there. He was working at the local hospital, transporting patients. And people immediately started to try to find out whatever they could about Jesse Matthews. People who had known him called him a gentle giant. He was a football player. He was a volunteer football coach. He was described as a quiet man who even mentored high school kids. He had friends that said, "Yeah, I would have trusted him with my kids," which is crazy. Nobody said, "Yeah, this guy's always had trouble," or, he caused this or he caused that. So really, who's the real Jesse Matthew? Maybe he was an okay guy. Maybe they didn't have the right guy. But, when they were asking people, his family, his lawyer, to paint a picture that's fair, everyone really just tried to maintain hope that maybe this was a mistake. But he was on camera with her, and he wouldn't say anything. As the days go on with no sign of Hannah or Jesse Matthew, hope is pretty scarce that she's going to be found. And people start wondering if this case is connected to some of the other cases in the area. Those other young women who searches had failed. They start looking into it and they think, well, they may not be connected, but it's definitely on the minds of the people living in and around Central Virginia. And, people were beginning to think bleak thoughts, just hoping someone would give someone information about something. And soon, somebody would. And the twisted trail of Jesse Matthew would take a surprising turn to the past. Less than a week after he fled in that high-speed chase, roughly 4 days, actually, not even a week, Jesse Matthew is spotted in Galveston, Texas, on a near-empty beach, 1,300 miles from Charlottesville. surrounding countryside. Despite the growing odds of this having any type of good outcome, no one was giving up. In fact, volunteers just kept showing up. It wasn't clear whether she was alive or dead at this point, but people were thinking more and more that she had probably died. People wanted answers, they wanted closure, and they wanted it now. But no one wanted the news that came on October 18th, just 35 days after Hahna disappeared. Sometime before noon that day, a search team from the Chesterfield County Sheriff's Department was searching an abandoned property along Old Lynchburg Road in southern Albemarle County when they discovered what appeared to be human remains. Where the remains were found were behind a home that no one was living in at the time, but this was within a few miles of the home where Jesse Matthew had grown up and spent time with his family. With the discovery of Hahna's body, the community that had searched so long and hard with John and Sue Graham now could only grieve with them. John said, "As a parent, my heart sank because it was final. My worst fears have come to light, but at the same time, we were able to bring her home, which is more than some parents can say. We were able to give her the proper burial she deserved, and at least we knew where she was." The next challenge comes from building a solid case against Jesse Matthew. He's not talking, but science is about to do the talking for him. Jesse Matthew is behind bars in Charlottesville, a case 100 miles away in Fairfax, Virginia, ice cold for nearly 10 years, is about to blow wide open. A gentleman named Detective Boone never stopped working on an unsolved sexual assaults case from 2005. It was involving a victim known only to the public as RG. Detective Boone January 2nd, 2015, Jesse Matthew was indicted for the abduction and murder of Hannah Graham 5 months after she vanished, before the prosecutors had the evidence that they needed. Now, most of this is sealed, so I am not exactly sure what they were looking for or what they found after a second sweep of his apartment. They said they found what they needed, and that is when charges were brought against him. Whatever they found was enough to make them change the charges from first-degree murder to capital murder, which made him eligible for the death penalty. By the spring of 2015, Jesse Matthew faced 2 trials. One for the murder of Hannah Graham, and for the 2005 abduction, sexual assault, and attempted capital murder of the woman known as R.G. The trial for Jesse Matthew and R.G. takes place in the shadow of the Hannah Graham case. Unlike Hannah, this victim is alive. After nearly a decade, R.G.'s case was moving forward with hearings and, finally, in June, a trial. Since the assault, R.G. moved back home to Asia to start a new life. Seeking justice for her case meant not only traveling halfway around the world, but publicly reliving perhaps some of the most terrifying moments of her life. But she does. She travels from her home in Asia to Fairfax, Virginia for the trial, hoping to put this man behind bars, not just for herself. Commonwealth Attorney Murrow was happy to have his case against Matthew go first, hoping to pave the way for future prosecutions for Hannah and Morgan. We wanted to take him off the street, and this is step 1. But the outcome of this trial, just like everyone else in these 3 entangled cases, would defy everyone's predictions. After 2.5 days, the prosecution rested, and the attention turned to the defense. The defense asked for a brief recess, and it lasted longer than expected, and then even longer. And you see Jesse's family get up, they get taken in the back, you see them come back, and his mom is crying, and the prosecutors are just sitting there, and you're thinking, no, there can't be a deal going on. And then it's announced that Jesse Matthew took what is called an Alford plea. I had to look this up because I didn't know what it was. An Alford plea is a plea under which a defendant may choose to plead guilty, not because of an admission to the crime, but because the prosecutor has sufficient evidence to place a charge and obtain a conviction in court. Whatever, it's a joke, you know you're guilty. The plea stunned everyone, including Gil Harrington, who attended the trial to show support. It did not end as expected, but the result was all that mattered. He's convicted. He's off the street. He was sentenced to the maximum sentence of 3 life sentences in R.G.'s case. Now, R.G.'s case is closed, but suddenly justice for another victim is moving with shocking speed. On September 16th, Jesse Matthew is indicted on more charges. These charges are for justice for Morgan has been a burden on their family for 6.5 years. John Graham told reporters, "Today's events do not bring Hannah back to us, of course. We miss her every day. In times like this, one has to draw comfort from where they can." After the announcement, the Harringtons returned to Copley Bridge, this time to tie green ribbons on the railings as a symbol of new growth and going forward. Gil Harrington said that it would be their final visit to the bridge where Morgan was last seen. "You don't get over your daughter being murdered, but you can't get past it, and we want to do that." Hannah's father said that Hannah's enduring gift to us all is that she enabled this wicked man to be apprehended and convicted. She did change the world, but at a terrible price. As I was researching this case, I discovered that Jesse Matthew had only served 3 years of his sentence when, in May of 2019, he revealed that he'd been diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. He's pretty young for that, in my opinion, but I guess it can happen at any age. The last information I could find about him: in December of 2020, he was transferred from Sussex State Prison to a secure unit within the VCU hospital in Richmond. As far as I can tell, he is still there and alive. Morgan Harrington's family founded an organization called Help Save the Next Girl. It's a national nonprofit organization seeking to sensitize young women and girls to predatory danger. Hannah's family, friends, and the University of Virginia funded several initiatives in her honor, including scholarships and a memorial softball tournament in her name. Hannah's family runs a website in her honor that talks about all of the different things that they have done in her memory. This case is so... Okay, so first, Hannah, she's drunk. She's wandering around, and this man completely took advantage of her. I don't know what he did to her. The cause of death was not revealed. But I can't even think about it. I'm just incredibly sad for all of the families involved in this case, and I have never seen quite the show of support that these other families really lent to the Graham family. Like, the Harrington family came out to search, Alexis Murphy's family came out to search. They all attended the trials for these other families and stood beside them in a show of solidarity. Even Alexis Murphy's mom, who, after it was revealed that this guy did not do this to her, still showed her support, and I've never seen a community come together like that in a case like this. Jesse Matthew, as I researched him, really had a dark past that a lot of people apparently didn't know about. He was on the football team in college, and he assaulted a girl, and they basically made him quit the team, but no charges were pressed, so no one was really aware of it. It was just kind of brushed under the rug. But this is one of the first cases I think that I've ever done where people had nothing bad to say about this guy. I mean, like I said, they called him a gentle giant. He mentored high school kids. He is someone that people would have trusted their children with. No one had a bad word to say about this guy, and that is so foreign to me. Usually, there's someone who says something. I don't know what happened. Obviously it's not his first crime, so I can't say it was an accident. I can only speculate as to what really happened that night. I know that she was drunk. He gave her more alcohol, It is crazy to me that he got away with so many of these other crimes for so long. If they had only put his DNA in the system sooner, if there had been charges for that first case, there probably would have been his DNA in the system, and maybe that could have saved Morgan and Hahna and RG, who, in my opinion, whoever she is, wherever she is incredibly strong for facing her fears nearly a decade later to testify against this man that assaulted her. I didn't really discuss her case much in this video. I could have, and you could research it, but I don't like to talk about sexual assault in descriptive detail, and neither does YouTube.